etiquette on the water in the 70s, 80s, 90s compared to today?
Yeah, well, when I started my career in the late 80s, there was already a lot of good etiquette on the Bass Tour, in the national tour. And that etiquette was established by guys like Larry and Rick Clunn and Roland Martin, Bill Dance, Gary Klein, Ken Cook, all those, guys that got this whole industry flowing and going. And if somebody was fishing a spot and they were winning or doing well, leading the tournament, people would just leave them alone. They'd let them have that spot. You'd respect that. And I remember the first big tournament, one of the first tournaments I ever won, it was at the Superstars tournament in Peoria, Illinois in 1995. And I found this first day of the tournament, Gary Klein, Shaw Grigsby, and I all fished the same spot. They didn't catch them very well. I was like leading or in second place. The next day they never came back, either one of them. I mean, that's true sportsmanship.
Yeah.
And I would have never won that tournament if I had to share that spot with both of those guys.
Yep.
And anyway, that's the kind of etiquette that I grew up in. And today it's a different game in a lot of ways. A lot of the young guys coming up, I'll let Larry talk about that.
Oh, man.
No.
Well, there's two ways to look at that. Yes, there was more etiquette, I'm going to say, in the 80s and 90s. And once about 2005 passed, that etiquette started going away. Number one thing, yeah, I know. Number one thing is you've got 150 kids that already know a lot. A lot. They're not in the learning process. And some of them will actually just pull in there and fish with you whether they know there's fish there or not. We don't know that, what's in their mind, what they found in practice. There's no way we can tell that. And I understand that. But now in the last I'm going to say the last 2 years is when it's really gotten bad. In fact, right now it's at what I call the horrible stage. but it's, if you've got 100 guys in a tournament and they know how to read electronics like some of these kids do, and they go out there and they idle around for 3 days and they find 25, 30 schools of fish, and you've got 120 guys out there that find the same 20 or 30 schools of fish. Who owns that school of fish? Nobody.
Right.
Nobody. And if you're the first man there, you can just get ready. There's going to be another one set down on this side of you, and then another one and in a minute you can't throw. I mean, that's the way it got, what I felt like it got in the last two tournaments, which to me I could never ever do, because that's not the way I grew up sport fishing. I grew up, if I went to a spot and I'm sitting there, that should be my spot. I got the rights to this hole. And now, if you want to pull up there and tell me that you're going to fish here tomorrow, if I don't let you catch some fish here, and you're going to have an earlier flight to me, then that's fine. We'll swap out. I'll let you fish a while or whatever, but let's work it out without just sitting there and bombing each other trying to make cast after cast in the same spot. Because there's been lots of times that I'd have a hole one day and I knew I wasn't going to get it the next day. But the next day I darn sure didn't pull up there and pressure the guy that's getting it.
Yeah.
Now if I'm leading the tournament and he feels bad about jumping my spot, then okay, that's fine. I'll do the same for you next year. That's the way I always treated it. And it's one of them things that you really don't know what other people find, so you really can't get mad anymore because of what the great electronics we've got.
Yep.
It's, I had 25 schools of fish found at Kentucky Lake. I got to fish one school by myself the first day. I never got on another one of them spots, ever, in 3 days, in 2 days.
Right.
Because there was always 2 to 4 boats on it. So that's, it's just a changing atmosphere out there, and
electronics is the biggest reason
the whole lake is sitting in your face.
Yeah, everybody in practice, they don't even fish much anymore. Used to be in the old days when the electronics were way inferior to today, everybody would just go out and fish to find the fish.
Yeah.
And so today, though, in practice, you'll have a 15-hour day in June, and the guys will fish for 2 hours, and they'll idle for 13 hours. Because they can just see there on the screen plainly where the schools of bass are on their Humminbird electronics, and so there's, like Larry says, there'd be 40 guys that find the same schools of fish, and who who has the right to fish them?
You don't know whether you're being hole jumped legitimately,
know.
or by somebody that says, "Ooh, there's a crowd. I'm gonna go join them."
Right.
And there's got some guys that do that, too.
Well, I'm positive.
So do you think that at the level that you guys are at, that maybe we should go back in time with respect to electronics?
No, you can't go back.
You can't go. You can't,
Nah.
That's crazy. But
Yeah, you can't go back. Guys need to work it out to where they just treat each other that they want to be treated. That's all. That's the best you can do with it, because people are going to find the same fish. A lot of people are going to find the same schools of fish. So, or you could, like I have, the last 5 years shied away from all that ledge fishing just because of all this that he's talking about. It's hard to win or do really well when you're sharing a spot with 3 or 4 guys. In fact, it's almost impossible. That tournament at Kentucky Lake this year, the guy that won had a spot all to himself, by the way.
That's right.
And so I've graduated to fishing, gravitated towards fishing shallow more in the summer because it's wide open.
Yeah.
There's nobody up there. And there's been tournaments at Kentucky Lake. I'd run to Upper Barkley in June. Everybody's ledge fishing. And I'd have a 10-mile section of the lake, and I would not see another bass boat in the tournament in a 10-mile section of the lake. And I could do pretty good. It had a couple top 5s doing that. Never could win doing that, but it was, so, that's one way to deal with it. But still, the darn tournaments are still won out deep. So you've got to get out there. And I ended up fishing deep this year at Kentucky Lake, and I ended up just fishing one spot the whole time because you couldn't move around.
Couldn't move.
You just have to pick the right spot. It's a real, it's a tough deal. It makes it tough, but I don't know. It's
There's really not a solution to it.
yeah.
It works out on some holes for 3 or 4 guys to share this one spot. Sometimes it gets into a fuss match, and everybody don't do well, and it's really hard. You really need a big body of water where everybody can scatter out. At Kentucky Lake, you could scatter out. And, if I had to say I made a boo-boo, it's because I didn't go far enough in one direction or the other to find me a few more schools of fish. Because everywhere I went, I was just covered up with the boats.
Yeah.
But, you just got something I'm going to have to learn to deal with. Fish it a little differently. Look for spots that are not obvious. I'm not real sure just yet.
It's amazing how the sport's evolved over the years to get to the point that we're at today, and it'll probably change more over the next 10, 20 years, Yep. It's but it's a different, and the bass too. The bass I think are a little bit different than when 20 years ago, the fishing pressure is so intense, and the guys, even the local guys, are so good anymore, and they're good with electronics too, that all the fish in our public lakes, they've all been caught at least once. All the keeper bass, they've all been caught. They're
getting educated too. At Kentucky Lake, I'm going to tell you what, some of them schools, it was crazy. Some of them schools, you'd pull up and you'd idle down through there and you'd see 15 or 20 of them on your graph. You'd wheel the boat around, make a cast, catch one, fire back in there,
They were
not
gone.
get another bite. And you'd turn around and idle back up through there, that school was gone. I mean, they just went, whoa! I swear, I mean, when they got, after that's been going on for about 3 weeks on them ledges, some of them fish hit the panic button.
Yeah.
And because they really caught more of them suspended at Kentucky Lake than we realized. They were throwing that big giant spoon and a big swim bait.
Right.
And the 2 biggest fish I weighed in that tournament, I was reeling my football jig up.
They grab it. Yeah.
But I don't know. It's gone. I don't want to talk about that tournament no more.
That sounds good. Larry, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Terry, you bet. That was a pleasure.
Enjoyed it, Jay.
Yeah, that was good. Enjoyed it.